All right, well, continuing our exploration of the Mandelbulb3D software source code, let's see if we can find something else of interest here. How about we go to, let's see if we can find an interesting piece of software here to poke around. Oh, here's animation. Oh, there's the animation form. Okay, all right, there's the animation form. All right. Now, here's the buttons, you know, here's various panels. You recognize all of this. This is where all your keyframes were sprawled across in that accordion style. All right. Now, okay, here's, let's see if we can find something interesting. Something that we might be able to relate to. Math, how about math? Here's math. Okay, so I just double-clicked on math3D.pass, pass meaning Pascal. Now that is .pas is just a code file. There's no form involved. And I'm quite certain that virtually every other class is making reference to math3D.pass because this is probably a library that has a number of different mathematical functions that occur within this this code file. Okay, the more accurate description of this is not a file, it's a class or it's a library. Now, a library can have functions and it can have procedures. We see here that here's a procedure, and the procedure is add s vectors. Here's vector 1 right here. All right, here's a constant, which we're calling vector 2. So this is adding two values together. Well, now a function right here would return a value. So what this is saying is, okay, length of svec. Here's a constant v, and then here is the value that's passed in, and then what's returned is a single. All right, a single would probably, by the definition of Pascal, would be an integer value. All right, with no decimal point, an integer. All right. Here is two procedures that have been what's referred to as remmed out. They've been commented out. They have been removed in terms of functionality. They haven't been removed in terms of the code, but they are no longer functional within the application. So for some reason, somewhere, someday, it could have been for debugging purposes or testing, the developer testing, but those procedures have been removed. So this is where the procedures are being defined. Let's see if we can get down in here and find a procedure. All right. Make ortho vex d. These arguments are where values are passed in. All right. And here is a variable that is being defined that's only going to be used within that procedure. And then here is the procedure. All right, and it's obviously doing some math. All right, let's see. Here's some functions here. Looks like some, yeah, huh? Wow. Oh, okay. Yeah, I know what that is. A bit too complex to go into right now, but I know what that is. All right, now let's just poke around a little bit more here. You can see there's a lot to this math3d.pasc class. All right, there's a lot of stuff here. So what you get in an environment like this is referred to as object-oriented, where you're going to have basically objects, or you're going to have classes. All right, now these classes, a class can instantiate or another class, or refer to another class, or pass values, data from class to class. Okay, so this is an object-oriented environment. Now this is not C#, this is not VB.net, nothing like that. This is Pascal. All right, and like I was saying before, in a couple sessions ago, you could certainly go read up on Pascal and get a sense for what's going on. So all of this code right here has been remmed out, commented out, which is indicated by this first squiggly bracket and this last squiggly bracket. So who knows why they took that out. All right, but by taking that out, what they've done is function cubic ipole 4svec. Here's the arguments that get passed in. All right, and all they're doing is they're just saying return something. All right, and at one point they had all of this code that was in to do something. Now you'll find if you look around in this this Mandelbulb3D source code, you got a lot of remmed out, commented out code. A lot of it. Now I gather, that's a fairly big chunk of commented out code. Now I'm not going to be the one that's going to jump to conclusions here, okay? And I'll tell you why. There could be a number of reasons why this, and in this case the entire function has been commented out. There's a number of reasons why code could be commented out. And I don't know what applies here, but okay, but one reason is that the software developer or developers were testing. They wrote a chunk of code that would test. All right, that's one reason. And they don't need the test anymore once the application is deployed, but they don't want to eliminate the code in case they need future testing. Another reason is that they found a better way to implement that particular function, and they wrote that function in more optimized, faster, quicker, less code, whatever you want to call it. But they didn't want to eliminate an older version of it, so they wrote a better piece of code. Another reason is that because they were attempting to find the code to perform some function, and they just couldn't. And so they gave up on it, and they killed it off. And so that entire function is no longer available to the rest of the application. In other words, they tried to put a feature or function in, it didn't work, they couldn't get it to work right, and they took it back out again. Okay? All right. I guess maybe a long shot, maybe this was one developer who said, look, if I write this piece of code, norm of quat. All right. But then another developer looked the code over and said, that's not going to work, or that's just not quite right. And so what they did is they took it out of that particular release, but they kept the code in there, in case they want to pull the function back in at another time. All right, so we're out of time on this session. I'll tell you what, let's do one more session on this, and then we'll get back to our Mandelbulb project and we'll move forward, okay? All right, so I'll see you in the next section.